Who, was I the one who moved to, waive the conflict?
Yes.
Okay, and who seconded that?
I did.
Also,
Okay,
sorry, we had a little guffaw here. We've not been recording, so we're backing up just a little bit here. Stupid president.
that was on me, I'm almost positive.
There'll be written notes that I'll get, so.
Okay, so there'll still be.
Good. Okay, we're all good. We have everything has been written down and will be reflected in the minutes. Okay, let's have this discussion about paying bills. I did invite Mayor Green to discuss this. And she well, I'll just turn it over to her. Good evening, Dana. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hi, thank you so much for the invite. And as usual, it seems like these things just sort of crop up and we haven't really thought through how to do this. And so it may seem
Dana,
like a whole bunch of, can you hear me?
Dana, can I interrupt for a second? You might want to turn the video off.
Is my video getting in the way again?
Yeah,
This happened last night at council too.
yeah, you're good now.
The Wi-Fi in this building is not great. Okay, so I wanted to talk about a couple things. One, there's two parts to this. One is how to deal with the invoices that have been received so far. So a week or so ago, the interim county manager, Lauren Snyder, approached me and said the county had received an invoice from an attorney and an invoice from, I believe, a newspaper advertisement, and was looking for a way to get them paid. And those came from actions by the Regional Housing Authority. So we looked into the accommodations tax situation, and we are, as it turns out, because my thought was we'll just pay it out of the accommodations tax fund. But as the ballot language is written, that is maybe not the ideal way to go about doing it. So ideally, this is what would happen. The Regional Housing Authority would have a bank account and a signatory and a mechanism to write a check or pay an invoice. The invoices that come from actions of the Regional Housing Authority would then be submitted to the city with a request from the Regional Housing Authority to cover it from the accommodations tax. We would release the accommodations tax money to them, to you, and you guys would write a check. Now, in this immediate, like this, these invoices are here right now, that seems a little awkward and clunky. And so what I am going to propose is, and Tim and Christian, our city administrator, might get a little heartburn over this, but what I would like to do is get these invoices to Tim and Christian and have you guys make this request, and then we would just cut the payment for that from the city out of the accommodations tax fund. That's the short-term fix. A longer-term fix is for the Regional Housing Authority to submit a budget to the city, and assuming that the amount of that budget was would be covered adequately by the accumulated accommodations tax, the city would just transfer or cut a check to the Regional Housing Authority for that lump sum to go into the Regional Housing Authority's bank account. And then you guys would just pay the invoices as they came into you out of your own bank account. And then if for whatever reason there was something that went over or whatever, you could make another request to the city for any residual or remaining accommodation tax funds that were over budget. So that's kind of the situation right now. We have this small pot of money and we're just trying to figure out a way to, within the ballot language and within what sort of makes sense, as the Regional Housing Authority is sort of is a non-governmental agency. It's sort of, came from the city and the county, but is not really part of the city or the county. That if you guys had your own financial base out of which to operate, that would fit the best within the way the ballot language is written.
Thank you for that, Dana. That makes sense to me. We do have a bank account. We currently don't have anybody that can sign for the bank account, which we plan to remedy that tonight. And we do have a budget that we passed last year, and I can forward that to you in an email, Dana, if that works.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think what would need to happen is we probably need to just have council bless that budget. Because at least the way that this looks is the city just needs to have some sort of not really oversight, but just being able to acknowledge that we saw the budget, we think this fits within the outlines of what the ballot measure dictates it can be spent on, and so we're giving this money to like you guys.
right, and I don't think council ever did officially approve
Yeah.
Anything for the housing authority, although we did have consensus when we talked about it during the budgeting session.
Okay, so
So
maybe
I'll forward you that budget,
Mhm.
and if we want to maybe put that on the next agenda for council,
that sounds fine. I'll make sure it gets
So-
on there.
so we can continue to pay bills without being so delinquent.
So how about this? If I send you those two invoices and then you can just make a formal request or a formal invoice to the city, I will get those funds released and I will just ask that the checks be made to these two entities for this time.
Okay,
But just because it is sort of, none of us want to be delinquent. The other small part of this is you could, and I would advise to wrap into, make sure that budget includes the salary for the executive director. And what the county is requesting is that also include the benefits.
Hmm.
Since the county
okay,
is feeling tight as well.
I don't know that we have the benefits in the budget, but we do have the salary.
Yeah.
And
That-
I believe Dan has comment or question?
Yeah, to simplify things further, do we know what the balance is in our bank
It's
account?
$50.
But you have to
Okay.
call every month and have her put the $10 she took.
Okay,
back.
so never mind. So we have budget money allocated, we just don't.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the money that we have budgeted is living in 2A.
Okay,
Yeah,
I understand that.
and I also remember an insurance invoice.
Yeah, Philadelphia.
So there is another invoice, Mayor. It's a nominal, it's for some insurance for the board.
Okay,
It was a late payment.
It was a late payment fee. Because of all the transitioning that this board has gone under,
yeah,
the insurance got paid late, so they how do you say, they canceled us and then they reinstated us once they received payment, and there's a small fee for that.
okay.
I think it's $150 or something like that.
Why don't you and I get together, Tim, and we'll compare invoices and then we'll just go to Crystal and get some.
Okay. I'll get
Okay.
with Jackie and then
Yeah.
I can get with you.
Okay, and so, and as far as the benefits, that question just came out of my discussion with Lauren Snyder. As you know, the county is really trying to tighten its belt as well. And so what they had been doing was housing the executive director under the county. So the accommodations tax paid the salary, but the county paid the benefits. That is a different discussion that you guys should have with the county.
Right, and that was part of the lending, employee lending agreement
Yeah.
that we have with the county.
Mhm.
I haven't looked at that lately. I don't know if that has expired or,
It expired after its first term and then it had an automatic renewal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Both IGAs.
okay, so
So they-
that's still in effect.
It's on.
Okay.
Okay,
They do both need to be renewed to be more accurate
Yeah.
right.
to everything, literally, but that's something that we do need an executive director for, to be honest.
Yes.
Okay, so that's all I got. Tim will get together, we'll do invoices. I'll get
Yeah.
checks cut and then you guys can carry forth and we'll try to clean up the connections.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good.
Thank you so much. Any other questions before I duck off and go to my other meeting?
Anybody? Questions?
No, thank you.
You're all
Rob.
good with that? Okay.
All right.
Dana.
Thank you,
Thanks.
guys.
Thanks,
See you later.
Dana. All right. I do believe the next thing on the agenda was the hiring committee, but they wanted to report during partner updates. If nobody has a problem with that, we'll just move on to electing board members. There are 4 officer positions available. This is the annual, this gets done on an annual basis. It's been delayed since we didn't have a full board. Now that we have a full board and everybody's present, I think it would be appropriate to go ahead and move forward with electing officers. How's everybody feel about that?
Great.
Let's start with El Presidente. Anybody have any strong feelings about who should be the president?
I'd like to nominate Tracy. Sorry, but I would like to do that.
I will second that.
Fabulous. This is Tracy, any comment?
Yeah, are you okay with being voluntold?
I know, voluntold. And I think I've like said, one concern that I have, and this is with my own board, is we don't always love seating like a chair or vice chair when they're new to the board, but this is kind of a new
Such a new
board. So there's a lot to catch up on. So
Yes.
I think that's my one concern, being new to the board. I know you're new and you're, you know,
Everybody's new except for
there's-
Christian and I, and we
know,
both
I
have,
know.
we both have done this position.
Yeah.
And I don't have any desire to continue.
When,
I just don't have the bandwidth. I mean, I'm thoroughly enjoying running the meeting.
The reason I'm nominating Tracy is because of your background already. If you were like new to boards or new to even housing authority boards, you know, I think it'd be more of a discussion, but that's why it seems so appropriate to me as we're going through this new transition to have you at the helm. So
a couple of questions. Is there an annual meeting that kind of, does everybody serve 1 year like in that position?
It's
And
at the
then-
beginning of each year is usually when
Yeah,
we do it.
so your term will go until January.
Okay,
It won't go until April, because we should have done this.
the
turn.
shortest term.
We should have done this in January.
Right, oh, that's, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
But we didn't have a board or a full board. So we wanted to wait until we got you on board so we could nominate you to be president.
And also, I'm nominating you. Please don't feel like you have to do it. That just felt like a formal way to say I think Tracy would be great.
I mean, I do think there's a lot of work and a strong board to help support a new ED. I think that's definitely a collaborative, you know, like all hands on deck.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm not opposed to it, but I will remind everyone that I do chair the other housing authority.
Chair it, right, you chair it.
So. It was,
I nominate Tracy for vice president.
I just don't want there to be a conflict with chairing that and
I don't,
I don't think.
I
there
mean,
would
I think-
be. Sorry, go on.
no, you're good. I mean, I think a little more connection between those two organizations is a benefit, not
Not a conflict.
not a loss.
okay.
No, I don't see it as a conflict, but I
Okay.
see it as like that being a lot of work to be chairing both housing authorities.
Right.
So if you would rather be in a vice chair position here, knowing you would also be appropriate for chair, then that's something I would defer to you, but I really appreciate, I would like your leadership in the executive team.
I have a question for the rest of the board. Is anyone, I guess, who would be wanting to run for vice chair?
I will, Tracy is the chair.
I like that because I like the vice president being from the county,
And that, you know,
just because the major projects we have going on right now are being dealt with by the county.
Yeah.
And you guys, you or Matt would be appropriate as well.
Yeah.
Just because of your connection with those projects.
totally.
Yeah.
So does that feel more fine now, Tracy, or less fine?
I mean, that's fine. That's
Okay.
fine. I mean, as we've been even interviewing candidates and things, you kind of, it's helping to kind of see where things are going and what the need is going to be.
Yeah. And just so you know, as president, you'll be working real close with the executive director.
Right.
Coming up with agendas and keeping things relevant.
Right.
And keeping the meetings rolling smoothly.
And I mean, ideally, less work with an executive director, right? That some of the
Yeah, I would
agendas and the
right.
things can be drafted.
I would say being president is pretty, it's a lift
Right.
without an ED. But once we get an ED, then it'll be less of a lift, but you'd be working closely with them.
Well, and I appreciate your point about having a county member on there because the transition for that person will be housed in the county.
Mhm.
So making sure that that transition is smooth for the president would be a
Yeah.
valuable add. Good point, Tim.
Unless there's anyone else that has a strong desire.
I'm good.
Not really.
Matt, you have any feelings?
I don't know how effective I'd be, I'm so green to this, so.
Okay.
Maybe next year.
Nice.
I feel like, Tracy also would be a good fit, so.
Board member Luna moves to formally nominate Tracy as president and Elsa as vice president.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All were in favor, congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
I will finish up the
Thanks,
meeting, if that's okay,
Yeah.
Tracy, that's usually what we do.
Okay.
But congratulations. And thank you so much
Of
Yeah.
course.
for taking.
Tracy,
this.
I promise I will be an active vice chair, vice president. I won't just leave it all to you. I'm happy to collaborate on whatever.
Okay, we do have two more officer positions available. We have the secretary. Whose basic duty is to take notes and, come up with minutes. Which we can do that next. Anybody have strong feelings about wanting to be a secretary?
Kristen
Richie.
seems pretty good at it.
Who? Christian?
Pretty good at it. Good type of.
At the end of the year.
Richie's already doing it over here, just so I can see over his shoulder, taking notes.
Sure,
Sorry, Richie.
I was gonna throw my head in for
I was
treasurer.
gonna say,
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have anyone else for treasurer? Please.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
Richie's has said he wants to be treasurer.
Love that.
she's glad.
I'm fine with the secretary role. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Just. I'll probably get the meeting minutes the week before the meeting or as soon as I possibly can, if possible, but I. Personally, don't feel comfortable not reviewing the recording just in case, so it takes me a little bit more time than normal.
I thought your minutes were fantastic,
Thank you.
so I would have no problem. I give secretary.
Bullock makes a motion to nominate Kristen Yell for secretary.
And
Harp seconds.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 And Richie threw his head in the ring for treasurer. Does anybody have any opposition to that? This would include. Well, you'd be monitoring the finances. So you would most likely be working with the mayor. With what we have previously discussed there in this meeting. And keeping track of the budget and signing off checks.
I nominate Richie Mutu for treasurer.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Harp nominates. Apologies, Dan.
I'll second.
All right, All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Alright.
Alright,
Any opposed?
Thank
All in
you.
favor?
Feels like we need a gavel.
We have a that was easy button in city council.
I have one of those in my office.
I appreciate the alacrity of this meeting. Alacrity, just came to my head, I wanted to use it, type it in, ALACRIT, it's like quickness. Quickness.
Yeah, I like the swiftness of this.
Yeah. Tim.
I kind of designed the agenda around being quick. Okay, so we have the next item on the agenda. Thank you for all that are gonna be officers. Appreciate it. But we do need two other boards, so the treasurer has signatory authority
the chair.
through the IGA. But we need two other board members to be authorized signatories for the bank account.
Traditionally,
Because-
in boards, chairs and treasurers are mandatory to be on it. I'm not sure why in ours it isn't that way, but it should be. So,
I have no
Sorry,
problem with the
Tracy.
president
Yeah,
being on a signatory authority and
the last one can be whoever.
And then it should be the ED. We don't
Well,
want it to be a.
the IGA expressly
It's,
states that it has to be two board members. I don't think that excludes the executive director from being a
You're saying it
signatory.
doesn't have to be a third on the board, a third could be.
I,
executive director.
ideally, it would be an executive director, yeah, I'd agree,
That's how it was.
But
yeah.
according to the IGA, it has to be, we have to have
Two.
the treasurer and two other
Oh,
board members.
Out of three, not J.
We have to
That
have,
doesn't exclude the
Yeah, yeah.
ED.
so we just have 4 signees instead of,
Yes,
sort of,
yes,
is what you're saying,
yes.
okay,
That's a lot.
that is a lot, that's kind of crazy, to be honest.
And to update the signatory thing, anyway,
Right.
we should change the IGA when we get an executive director,
Yeah.
that's a lot of people. Who wants to be the third?
Well, I can help with that. That sounds easy enough.
There you go.
Okay, so we have three board members that will possess signatory authority for the Pueblo Bank and Trust, the bank account, which currently has $50 in it.
Well, be careful with that.
Every month they subtract.
$10.
Bridget, just so you know, every month they have been subtracting $10 for inactivity on the account. If you call Mary at the bank and say, hey, this is Richie, I'm the treasurer for the bank account. Can you give us our money back? She'll give you the $10 back. Now, Jackie, you would know, does Richie should probably get in contact with Mary?
Yes, you'll have to go
So-
in front of her and present identification.
Actually, I think all people who will be signatories have to be there and present identification. In fact, if we were to add the ED, we'd have to redo this and make sure that we have everything up to date. So,
That's why it's annoying to have so many signatories.
Yeah.
Because it's so cumbersome to change them.
I don't think we should wait for the ED because we have delinquent.
I was gonna say, so once we get to the point of having an ED, we're gonna have to go back again. And I think only the ED would have to show up that time.
yeah, cause like, we bank at Alpine Bank and they just send it to us electronically and we sign. And we all do have to sign whenever we have any changes, but they just send it to us electronically, and it's pretty easy. But,
No,
no, I don't know.
It-
if
it's-
they can do
if
that or
it-
not, but.
Theirs is in person, we
Okay.
have to show up in person,
Okay,
Trust community banks,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
okay, so if you three can get together and get with Mary and figure all that out, that would be terrific.
Does it all have to be at the same time?
Yes, it should be, they'll have to show up all in person, same time, make sure you bring their IDs and know your social security number, bring the meeting minutes and bring the approved meeting minutes showing that the meeting minutes were approved.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which actually, now that we
The next
say
Say
that,
we-
so
We
why
have to
don't
wait
why don't we put a pause on this and get into the executive director report if y'all are comfortable with that? Just knowing that we're gonna revisit this right after, because I think it'll be important context. Everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah.
I mean, I can give Mary a shove and see if it could just be done by DocuSign. I think they need a little push also on that.
But what Christian is saying is that we have, when you do it, you have to bring in the approved meeting minutes. So even though we're doing it today,
Okay,
we don't approve meeting minutes until next month.
that's fine.
So we wouldn't be able to do it for
We
Monday.
could
Can we
maybe
do it
just
for,
ask
like,
Mary to
maybe
swing by
meeting-
at like
meeting minutes?
5:30.
Not typically unless it's in our bylaws, which we don't have.
Yeah, okay, so I can ask Mary if she could just come to the meeting next month.
Why don't we have Richie do that since he's the treasurer?
Well, I just know her, but sure, doesn't hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
We all know it.
So, okay,
Do you know Mary? She runs Pueblo Bank and Trust.
I don't.
I know Mary.
Mary.
She's the one that sits, she's the one that sits in the big office.
Yeah.
We had to do this process for the Lake County Democrats, so I'm so familiar with it multiple times now. It's a pain in the ass.
That is a good idea, Dan. If you could ask her, Richie, if it would be easier, if she could come to the meeting after we approve the minutes. Get everybody signed on to that.
So next month meeting,
Yeah,
that
which is,
is too late.
It's gonna have to wait. We
I've
can't
got a-
do it.
We gotta, s-
Unless we held a special meeting to approve the minutes.
In which case we could, but we'd have to properly notice it and make sure everything's. in
Well-
order for that.
I had a conflict, I'm gonna have to be on Zoom next month. That's
Okay,
it's a
so that's not gonna work.
family thing.
Well, didn't Christian say we could, there's something else? That could.
Yeah,
warrant
so-
discussion?
Yeah,
All right, so let's go ahead and skip ahead to partner updates and let's get the hiring committee update on the ED position.
and the context for why this is relevant is if we. In this same, well, no, we would need the name. That doesn't matter, yeah, that sucks. Okay. We'll give the. Update, we interviewed, two candidates, just for fairness, we're not gonna share their names and we'll be referring to them as candidate A and candidate B. But we went through two interviews with both of them. We did initial interviews and felt comfortable enough with moving them both to second round interviews in person. We did our initial interviews online with both the candidates. And at that time, it was Tracy and I that both are present for those, at the, second round interviews. Dan, myself and Tracy were present for candidate B's, interview, and Jackie was able to join us for candidate A's interview. So our large takeaway is a couple of things. One, no matter who we choose, we're gonna have to kind of work together on supporting this person, and making sure that we are setting them up for success. And two is ultimately, we found that candidate A felt like the better fit for where we're at this moment. And I'll let the rest of the committee members who were present for those interviews kind of describe their main takeaways of that, reminding that we were using candidate A and B. I don't know.
I'll try and get the pronouns right too. So I think
Maybe don't get the pronouns right, 'cause
Well-
that would make it clear who.
not, yeah, I meant in that context.
Got it, okay.
Oh,
Sorry, Pam.
I'm not to
Just have
use
a-
any pronouns.
Believe in you.
So I think candidate B had some experience, had run some grants and projects, and I think was eager to do it. I think we, maybe I can speak for all of us, felt like this is gonna be, we want someone that we can hand a blank slate to, and they can come back and say, here's what we think you should be doing, here's some opportunities, here's some risks, what do you guys wanna do as a board? And I think we felt like for B, sorry, I thought I put that on vibrate. I think they've worked within a box and maybe at some point would be successful working with a blank canvas. But I think we were concerned it was just gonna be a little too much at this time. You guys think that's fair?
Yeah, I think candidate B is a little green, a lot of great experience in managing, working within from federal to state level and across sectors. But a little green, a little lacking probably some leadership skills and some initiative. I think they'd be a really great second in charge if we were hiring for two people. And candidate A definitely has a lot more context within this world, has worked in our region and knows a lot of the players from the state down, which I think is really helpful. And has worked on a lot of the projects under the umbrella of scope of work that housing authorities do. So I think that kind of seemed, and I think the initiative a lot more just ready to kind of take the baton and run. And understood more that there is kind of a blank canvas here and helping to build that foundation. And understood that process a lot more, and that was gonna be part of the role. Where the other person seemed to struggle with that, understanding that concept, and really was looking, I think, for us to hand the different pieces to them and really help. I think there'd be a lot more hand-holding, which I think would be difficult. I think in a few more years with some other skills, they'd be excellent. But just maybe not quite ready for this role.
Jack, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
So I would agree with everything that you said regarding candidate A. I think that you're lucky to have somebody who has spent time in the housing realm and does know, and I think it is critical that they know the people at the state level and understand the grant funding and how everything works, and so I fully support candidate A. I did not meet candidate B.
We could cross candidate C off the list then, right? So that would be a win for Jackie.
So,
Well, speaking of candidacy, we did
yeah,
get a couple more applications in, after, these interviews.
and
And one in particular seems to be pretty darn experienced. So I don't know if we want to consider either of these applications.
so what we, and this will go into the next kind of phase of our recommendation, we really want to give everyone on the board the opportunity to meet candidate A. So, they feel comfortable with that. So, we want to schedule for next week a meet and greet. We urge that all of us be there. For whatever reason, we can't find a day that works for all of us. We'll go with who the most amount of people that can show up. But we did want to schedule that meet and greet with candidate A and B to be able to be there. Though our recommendation is candidate A, we don't want to force any choices. Because of how our boards work, we also wanted to encourage the board to give the committee the authority to, based off the recommendation of that meet and greet, after the meet and greet, that the board may have their takeaways from, allow the committee to make the ultimate hiring choice, based off of the rest of the board's kind of recommendation off of that meeting. That just allows us to have a little bit more flexibility of when we schedule it, so it doesn't have to be a special meeting. And it can just be a regular work session for us where we can convene in a legal way without having to notice an agenda in a certain type of way. That felt the most appropriate for that, and for us to be able to speed along the process, including if we decide that none of the candidates are a good fit and we want to continue on to look at our other options. But just given our time frame and how fast things are moving, especially with like the bank account, we do feel strongly that it would be the quicker we can get this started and hired through, the better. So that was kind of my plan of how can we do that while trying to still keep as many days open, so we don't have to notice a special meeting, but still have a work session for this meet and greet. Obviously, If the board is comfortable with that.
Is the, don't, we have to post a work session as well, though, right?
Yes, but it's less stringent than,
Okay.
like, meaning, since we're not voting on anything as a
Oh,
board.
yeah, I would think it definitely should be a work session.
Yeah, since we're not voting on anything as a board in that session, there's the leniency is basically just posting a meeting instead of posting exactly what's on the agenda, what you're gonna be discussing, and a certain time period. We do still have to post the work session, but we're not as beholden to as it would be a normal or rather a special meeting.
What are the timeline requirements for those postings?
I believe it's a week for a special meeting, which is kind of what makes it difficult to be a special meeting. And it's less for a work session. I'm not sure the exact time, but I'm sure we can come away with a date today and it would be fine.
Where do those rules come from? Like,
It's just
determining-
open meeting laws.
Well, not the county, it's just 24 hours.
Yeah, I thought that's what it was.
Yeah,
The cities specifically, we have to have it posted a week before for meetings if we're voting on something, is my understanding. We can't, for example, amend the agenda the day before if we're adding a like large item that we're voting on. 24 hours before. I could be fully wrong, but that's
That's
my
just-
understanding of
that's
it.
just, at the county, it's just 24 hours. So that's what I was wondering, that's
24 hours.
And we-
But the exception is if it's for like a site specific, then there's actually like a 14-day.
like, yeah.
For a work session?
Or for a special meeting.
Okay.
It's when you're, the hiring, we had a weird one with hiring that I had never seen before, like when we hired our county manager, it had to be a 14-day notice. And I'm sure with like land use, it's different, but as a public hearing notices, but just for open meetings, it's 24 hours at all those.
Yeah, so I think,
But I don't know if the hiring.
yeah, it's a.
I'm just presenting the safe option.
Totally.
Yeah, it's gonna be a work session regardless, because we're not going to decide.
Right.
I think, and we were looking at next Tuesday, Wednesday, I think ideally.
Yeah.
Tuesday would be better for me. I'm leaving Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
During what time of day?
Probably the.
Probably the,
after.
yeah.
Monday or Tuesday.
At another
Right.
evening.
Let's try
Um,
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday is the 22nd. Didn't you have something going on with C4?
There is,
We do have an evening event.
we don't necessarily have to go, but if
Well,
that's the
that's-
day that works best, I'm
It's-
cool with that.
It's not till 6, like, could we do 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah,
can do the C4.
The candidates, well, I don't know.
Candidate A.
Candidate A or recommendation was open to it. I guess the other part of that was if candidate B, they had something else going on and another offer. We're not 100% confident that candidate B would be willing to extend that offer. I don't feel comfortable saying what time their offer was, the timeline there was a deadline to that. Anything that we choose would be beyond that. So there's a chance that candidate B would not make it. But that's okay. We felt pretty strongly that candidate A should be the people we're looking at least from the committee's point of view. Candidate B would just be in sake of fairness, maybe there's some big surprise that shocks us all and we all feel comfortable with candidate.
So does 5 o'clock work or 4:30?
Probably 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock? And where do we want to have this work session?
You know, Shaven, if anything's at the chambers during that time,
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What's the date?
22nd.
the 22nd.
Is this room open? Or there's people working here?
Usually
On
like
the 2nd, the only thing that's on the calendar is from 4 to 6, 9 to 10. Yeah, I'm sorry, just 4 to 6. That's HPC.
Okay.
Yes, we can do it.
I'm sure we could do it, well.
We could do it anywhere. We could do it at the Manhattan.
Yeah, I mean, we could.
They're gonna need a drink, so.
There's the room upstairs also.
Oh yeah,
Do we
is that one being used?
Do we wanna do it here, or does this feel a little too claustrophobic?
That one is, what, you looking for 5? What time did you say?
Yeah, but I think we're like 5, is that right? Everyone feel comfortable with 5?
Yeah, that's
5
why,
is-
yeah, that room is available at 5.
Okay,
What was it?
that's the upstairs conference room for, Thistle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which isn't much bigger than this room.
No, a little bit bigger, but.
I'm sure we could find somewhere at the county too, like this room or the BOCC room. Or just milling about in the halls.
This room has very comfortable.
Whatever it is, we do have to notice it.
Right. Jackie, do you know how to look at that? I always just rely on Sandra. To see where we can.
I think
Let's see if I can.
we asked one for 5 and one for 5:30.
Do you,
And I guess the other question is, do we want to have a couple questions that people want to throw their hat in to ask this person? No. You know, I don't think we really talked about the vision.
Structure.
But yeah, of
Yeah.
a meet and greet other than.
I
we
mean,
wanted to
I'm
give everybody
envisioning
the
pizza
opportunity.
for sure.
Yeah.
You wanna
Pizza.
write a
Maybe a
cool
cake.
invoice?
No, we only have $50.
Sometimes even less, we don't have to know.
Natural light it is that.
I'll bring some water.
I'm curious, I don't know if we can ask why candidate A is leaving the current position that they previously in.
Was that question asked?
We did not ask that question, but I think we got a pretty good idea as to why. I don't know that we can share that without,
I'm sure,
yeah,
I'm sure any questions would be welcome at the meet and greet, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The appropriate questions. You
Right.
gotta know your lane. Family,
Yeah,
they're
I'll be on.
protected classes?
protected classes, good job.
I mean, I guess my perspective is I feel very comfortable with candidate A, and I don't know if a half hour, if you guys are gonna feel comfortable with that time, if we feel good about A, should we just make it an hour? Have a few questions? I mean, my view of it was gonna be a little more informal, because the
Yes.
4 of us, we could have some, I mean, I will donate some hors d'oeuvres and some appropriate beverages. But
Yeah.
that's sort of my view. We didn't talk about this, but that's,
that's kind of what I envisioned too. I don't know that it needs to be so. I think every meet the candidates I've ever done has been like, you're grabbing pizza at Freight and having a drink and you're just chilling with them.
Yeah,
I just-
milling about, like,
Yeah.
you could literally just walk down the hallways,
Yeah.
chatting.
I felt
Asking
like,
what brand of snow shovel they like. It's always my question.
That's a good one.
That is a good question.
if I hadn't been part of it, just on board, I would want to meet them before I formally hire them, so that.
And I guess that's the question, does everybody want to meet them?
Yeah,
You know, or do you want to take our recommendation?
I-
for face value?
Personally, I've read their CV. I trust the hiring committee. It's not important to me to meet them.
quite frankly, if everyone feels comfortable, the rest of the board members who weren't there, if y'all are like, we don't even need to do this, we trust y'all, that's fine, we can do that. I think the idea of,
I haven't, I
Can we
mean,
clarify who we're talking about here? Cause I have a candidate in mind, I think.
not really,
All right, well, if we're not gonna clarify the candidate, let's have a meet.
yeah, that seems fine with me.
Can we give initials?
I'm not against it. I'm just saying.
How's your sign language?
Location of residency.
How's your ASL?
I mean, in region, sure.
In region.
This space is available on the 22nd. Do you wanna do the 22nd?
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jackie.
So 22nd at 5 here.
22nd, 5 o'clock here at the annex room or the annex meeting room.
Love it.
and we're just
I'll
gonna
see
do.
how the Safeway Shred cocktails
We're
are.
gonna invite.
But I guess, do you all want us to invite both candidates?
You did tell the candidate meeting.
Right down.
No, I'm not eating.
Fair enough, we do have to.
I think we.
We'll invite both candidates. We did tell candidate B we would
You
be.
can invite both candidates. I don't see a problem with that. They
Great.
can both be here at the same time. That's always how it's been at these things where I've been to.
Yeah.
Or at least that's how it was with.
Or should we stagger them, one at 5, one at 5:30?
Come on, I like awkwardness.
Both chat, we can all chat.
Great.
I'm just gonna say, if we don't. If candidate. If we don't want candidate B, I also don't wanna waste their time.
So,
So I don't think that we have to have two just for the sake of having two, if we know that one is who we wanna actually look at.
I think the conflict there is the conversations that we've had with candidate B as a hiring committee.
What do you mean?
We have told them that we're gonna go through this process and potentially invite them to a meet and greet with the board. So in fairness, I think it'd be fair to give them the opportunity to.
Invite them.
I think we could ask and
Oh, yeah.
say, here's what we are recommending, do you wanna participate in that?
Yeah, I mean, we can be frank,
You
but
guys?
I feel fine with that, yeah.
here's what you're recommending, you're gonna tell candidate B. You're gonna recommend candidate A, and if you'd still like to.
Give them the option, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that's awkward, but I think it fulfills what we. Yeah.
Yeah,
I did.
Sure.
I mean,
think that-
if they show up after that, that sounds
That
great.
is captain on here.
I think that fulfills what we,
Yeah,
what we said
I
we were
agree.
gonna do on the process, and I feel like that's full disclosure, here's where we're at.
Right.
Give
Yeah.
them the option.
Yeah, just be honest, fair with them. If it was me, I'd be like, oh, what, great, I'll just keep looking for another job, why would I come to the meeting?
I'd still go for sure cocktails.
Yeah, just to be clear, that was a joke, I'm not buying shrimp.
Dan, expect it.
That was sarcasm,
When we get
because
to,
if we kill Tracy, then somebody else has to be the president.
Okay, sure.
So if, so it seems like the 22nd, 5 o'clock. Do we want to stagger? It seems like it's fine if they're both at the same time.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
I think, because I've been the one emailing them, I will state that we are doing a meet and greet with the candidates, open house style, from
Yeah.
5 to 6.
Yep, that
Just
sounds
join
great.
us.
Yeah.
Meet for,
Great.
Very professional, I love that.
and I think,
Sounds
The
fair.
last is, could we get direction from the board, or I guess, do we want the board to give the ability for the housing or for the hiring committee to make that final hiring choice? Or do we want to delay that for our next meeting or a special meeting? Like, how do we want to handle that? Cause it wouldn't be then and there.
Do we need, I don't know if it's in the IGA, or not, if we need an official vote.
It's not in the IGA and we don't have bylaws, so that's why I'm asking for.
We have bylaws that
Well,
are very skinny.
That don't cover that very specific for each scenario.
I would advocate for giving the hiring committee the authority to make the hire.
Me too.
me too.
I'm good with that.
would an offer letter come from the
Yeah.
county then? Okay,
Yeah, so we should connect with Zoe
okay.
about what that process looks like.
That'd be our first test, did I go there?
Yeah, no. What are you guys proposing, for pay?
Well,
We did talk about it, we were leaning at the higher end of things.
and I think we could maybe after the meet and greet, have that discussion if you wanted, when you had a better feel. I would advocate for the higher end as well. And I think, I'm a fan of revisiting that based on performance pretty soon. I think my feelings clear about that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you guys wanna weigh in after the hiring, the meet and greet,
What was the range?
60 to 77.
77 or 72?
77.
I feel comfortable with that, at the high end.
The previous, director made Pete and Jackie, you made 70, is that correct?
75.
75.
I say it seems pretty low.
We're certainly,
So,
certainly budgeted for it. We're budgeted for 70. We are now in April, so we have 4 months of salary that are not gonna be paid. So we have plenty of room in the budget for even the higher end.
And was that, was there a limit on that from the city or the county? How did we come up with that?
No, the allocation from the city through two A funds is 70,000. That's what's in the budget.
So just
So we-
awesome,
That's how we can cover the other, got it.
awesome quick math. If we allocated 70,000 in our budget and did not have an employee for 4 months, that would be $23,333 that we have left over for this year that would have been allocated to an executive director.
Yes.
So
But we'd also
On-
need to,
on top of the rest.
but we'd have to figure out how much for next year,
Right.
because we
Right.
wouldn't have that, we could.
No, I'm not saying we do everything crazy.
And we need to honestly talk about sustainability of that pay,
right,
but I would hope that the city would be open to discussing the new IGA.
I guess.
That could potentially increase that pay.
The IGA is in the queue
Yeah,
for the city. We were informed of that last night. So this particular IGA is in the queue.
or I think the cities will just wait until this
Oh,
has an authority or executive director.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm just making sure it's all
Right.
Yeah.
just out in the open, that we would need to make sure it's part of
Was
it.
there anything else in the budget from the city? We talked about other, like, this person needing a computer, this person, you know. like,
Yes, we have. We have $136,000, 600 in the
Okay.
budget for things
For
like
things
that.
like.
So that's the
Great.
total budget, 70 plus 136
Yes,
Okay.
Okay,
for the whole organization,
yes,
so.
for
not much.
2025.
Yes.
for 2025,
And then
yes.
for 2026, that gets revisited or?
So
During budget season, we will have to approve another budget for 2026.
we, obviously, with elected positions, there are 3 seats up at council, right? So take that dynamic for what it is. Not saying they may or may not change, although I think your term limit is that right?
I'll be termed out, so. yeah,
So-
this will be on last year.
1 for sure change. I have no desire to run again, so 2 probably changing. So you have to keep that in mind. If we put it in the bylaws, it doesn't necessarily mean that the new city council will for sure agree. It is up to the new city council, but they wouldn't have any say of that until 27's budget, so. Whatever it is, we're good for a couple of years. At
Good for
least,
this year and next year.
yeah, but
And this comes from 2A.
2A, and
And
just because we don't have any internal funding mechanisms. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, it's just something that, a risk that we as a board need to be aware of, that there's a potential of. That electeds will end up changing their mind, even if we do have an IGA with the city.
They could spend it on other things, other housing initiatives.
Yeah, they can spend it on, exactly, it's nowhere in the ballot language does it specify that it is only for the regional housing authority. It is for any housing thing that the city decides to budget for.
I mean,
Right, so
I think it's,
the only thing that is in the IGA. Is the 70,000 for the ED.
Mhm.
The other 136 can be used for whatever housing initiative there are. But Christian and I heavily advocated for it to be. Contributed to the housing authority, mainly because we do not have any other forms of funding. Or any other way to generate revenue right now. And so city council had consensus on that, so that's where all that's coming from.
so they had some consensus on it, they didn't.
It's,
you
it
didn't see
was,
much pushback on that.
no, and it was approved through the budget season, once we approved the budget. I
We
think,
never officially submitted
yeah,
our budget, but that's what we're gonna do in this next meeting to ratify that.
and ideally, we would do that for next year. during the year while we're still elected, and you still have the exact same board that would have approved this anyways, so.
Right.
That,
Two IGAs, just.
yeah, there's the, or
One.
housing director IGA, and there's the regional housing authority IGA. That's, we don't have to dive into that.
Just saying.
Thank you for the
what to do.
background there.
But yes,
I would agree, it's like a medium-term risk, but I think in 2 years, we ought to be able to justify what the ED is doing and why we need to continue funding that. And maybe
Ideally.
if we can't, then we should just roll this whole thing up. But
Yeah.
cool, well,
Okay, so meet and greet,
meet and greet,
22nd, 5 o'clock, right here.
y'all feel comfortable with the, or coalition, or Jesus, I can't get my head straight.
Everybody's comfortable with the committee making the decision
Thank you.
about an official vote,
Yes.
on the candidate and the salary.
the candidate and the salary, everybody's good with that.
Yes.
Do we have to vote on that?
I don't believe we have. to
No, we
vote on
don't. It's not in our
that.
bylaws.
That's why we developed a hiring committee.
Yes. Great,
All right, cool.
now
We
revisiting.
gotta call references to, I don't know if we need to say that out loud, but we'll also call
Would
references.
the county do background checks? Would that be us?
I'm sure it'd be us.
Okay, so we.
But I have an alarm set to connect with Zoe to find out about what the
Okay,
process.
so we'll
Yeah, and what work has already been
TBD
done,
on
'cause-
background checks.
And what has already been done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause I have their references, so,
Nice.
I do have them. If that's the direction we go.
Okay, cool.
Okay, great. Any other updates? I imagine Chapin is here for an update, so right?
No, I was just,
We're
Just
just
hang-
rest.
hanging on for, yeah, a little bit after Fellcrest, see if I could be helpful with anything, but I didn't come prepared with any.
Well, thank you
updates.
so much for hanging out.
Yeah.
We always appreciate you being. Jackie, you got anything? No?
I guess I could give just an update from like the city's perspective on zoning code amendments that are in the works and are being prioritized that would relate to affordable housing. So the Planning and Zoning Commission for the city is working on 3 code amendments. So in terms of the entire toolbox of things that can be done to support housing, part of that toolbox is related to regulation. So we'll be working on 3 ordinances. Inclusionary zoning within PUDs, so 6-acre or larger developments, so think rail yard phase 3, for example. Incentive zoning, which would be for 3 to 10 unit infill development, for example. So if someone wants to get increased density or increased building height, they could do that in exchange for a portion of the units being deed restricted. And then an annexation policy, which would identify public benefits, like housing, deed restricted housing that would be provided in exchange for the city annexing. So the next Wednesday, next week, the Planning and Zoning Commission will be holding a work session to just continue working on those. So those are updates just from the regulatory realm.
And if I can kind of talk a little bit about kind of the why, I think the biggest takeaways that we've had, and this was years of, meetings that both Tim and I have been to, and multiple different council members and even mayors discussing different approaches to housing. These were identified as kind of the tools that we can use for each individual approach. So bigger developments having a little bit more stringent, smaller developments having more incentive based, and then annexation having its own base. Passing them allows us to actually enforce them when we don't have something in the books for that. We can end up with a similar situation like the rail yard where we don't have much authority to ask for things that may have been promised by the developer, but they didn't follow up through. So passing these just, as a learning experience from the city's perspective, passing these is kind of our teeth to be able to uphold these promises that were made by developers to them and actually have some teeth to that so that we don't end up in a similar situation where a developer is promising X amount of affordable units and it ends up being significantly less than what was promised. So that's kind of the context behind why we are taking that multifaceted approach for different sized developments and different developments. And, you know, at least the council that have had those conversations in work sessions, which is definitely a different council than what it is now, felt pretty strongly about that, so.
And generally speaking, that's all targeted at higher AMIs.
Yeah.
Upper AMIs.
Yeah, when we're selling units, we have to be able to make it affordable. Usually rentals are targeted towards lower AMIs. Selling units is targeted towards relatively higher AMIs.
Yeah, so all these are just to, give some accountability to the commitment that the developer is making
Yeah, that's right.
and giving us the ability to enforce. That'd be fair to say, Chapin.
Yeah.
Great, thank you for that update. Do we have any other updates? Anything from the county? Anything going on at 10-2?
Let's see, we approved, what did we approve with, we approved some
The pre,
further planning.
yeah, the pre-development work,
Yeah.
so they could actually prepare for some more they've already done.
Yeah.
And then on the 22nd, we're having a session to talk through the vertical development with them. And then on the 28th, your opportunity to make a decision on that. So things are coming up.
But everything is moving forward with Oakwood and
Yeah, so Oakwood is going, they're going to Nebraska to go look at the factory, and finalize pricing. It's a very scary time, you know, for housing products and expenses going up. There's going to be, I think, a price increase May 1st. So we're looking to,
So we have to make a decision before then to lock in the price. And if we delay it at all for any reason, we won't have that pricing. Shan't,
Yeah.
we won't do it, right, Matt?
No decisions will be made.
We won't delay our decision.
Decision,
I don't- Hey,
I guess it depends on.
Way to be
on the offer.
That's been those training.
Yeah, how many?
Did the unit pricing come back? There was something
they're still trying to.
that was supposed to be back, but they're still wringing their hands. Okay.
Well, it's challenging because we're looking at, yeah, Proposition 123, for additional funding, for the 100% AMI folks. That application is due May 1st. And so we'll be talking about that also. And that it's their spreadsheet's really challenging. They require additional contingency, which we had built into the budget because we thought we were fine. And then they said, oh, you don't qualify, your prices are too low. We're going to hold our prices are maybe low, but they're still not affordable to our buyers. So.
Yeah, so. When, no matter what the price would have been, we would have needed gap funding, is that right?
Yeah, and I think that, honestly, Adam Berger did us no favors.
Right.
And the pricing was not dialed in and there would have probably been major issues. So I appreciate Oakwood's, extensive due diligence, looking into this very carefully and trying to be very considerate about what they're delivering.
But at any rate, the housing authority does not need to
Not at this time, no.
pull any levers to make any of this stuff happen. Okay. Good.
I, just because I was the one who kind of threw us on the tangent, want to circle us back to the signing authority. I don't think we ever made a motion to appoint the three.
Can I have a motion?
Board member Luna moves to appoint, Richie Mutu, Matt Bullock and, Elsa Tharp to be our signees.
No, Tracy.
Oh, sorry, wrong person, Tracy. Fletcher, Tracy Fletcher to be our signees for Pueblo Bacon Trust.
that was the second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I do have one update then.
Any opposed?
I also have super quick update. I talked to Nick. He said he's willing Costello to be on the development subcommittee, so whenever we convene that, he's willing.
That's terrific. It'd be great to have him on that. Do we need to appoint him?
We would,
So we can do that next meeting?
yeah, we
If you wanna
could,
make a note for an agenda
The
item?
development subcommittee previously did the appointing, so I don't know if they. Right? Did you guys choose?
we-
Super fuzzy.
we chose the initial parties. I
Right.
think you all,
And then
the
they
committee,
chose-
we let the committee, you're right, we let the committee choose any additions to it. So I guess if the committee still has a structure, they can choose on their own. But you,
So it's Chapin, Ann, and Dan.
yeah.
But they have the authority to appoint somebody,
Mhm.
okay, so we don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, we gave
Do
them
we
that
want
authority.
to say
That's right.
now in
Unless
this
anybody-
meeting that if Chapin's okay with it, Nick is officially on the development subcommittee?
Probably have to have Ann there to do that formally, right? I mean, I don't have any
We're
concerns with that, to
outvoting.
keep things
I mean,
efficient.
We have a quorum with the two of us.
Okay, yeah, so I support that.
Okay.
For the record, I support Nick Costello as a member of the development subcommittee.
I'm on board.
Any members of this board have a problem with that? Okay. We thought Nick was a really good fit for that committee as opposed to being on the board because he was an applicant for the board as well. But
And for the record, just from the city's perspective in my roles doing the development review for his developments up on Brooklyn Circle. I've had an excellent experience from the city side with permitting. And which, and for those, those are two bedroom modular units with garages. I mean, I think it's all getting more expensive, but a relatively lower price point than other developments. So from modular construction standpoint, from a site development standpoint, and permitting, it's all been very smooth.
yeah. Yeah, I think Nick just came across to me as somebody who doesn't fool around and gets things done the right way. So I think you'd be great with our committee.
I'll send him a note.
Tracy, you had something?
Yeah, I just wanted to, with Mount Massive Manor, I think I mentioned this. That project has gotten dinged by HUD because of the windows. There's roughly $125,000 worth of work that needs to be done, and we are quickly and fast and furiously trying to get funding to the community project funding that's due, I think, Friday. And so I don't know, I don't know if anybody else is putting in for any of those dollars, but I just wanted to. Sometimes we don't know who's putting in for what, and we don't want to compete against each other.
I did
And
ask Josh at sanitation if he said that they were considering it, but I haven't heard from him, but I think it's a separate. Which of the community projects is it?
it would be under transportation, housing, urban development.
Yeah, it's a different one. It's
Okay.
specifically for water and sanitation.
Okay, and we may need some quick turnaround letters. I think Elsa Coughlin was
Mhm.
drafting those from city and county.
So
I talked to Brittany last night and asked her a little bit about it. So just wanted to throw that out there because of the safety and the age of the windows and all that, they are not passing those inspections. And so that is a project that needs to be addressed, and figure out where those funds can come from.
Have y'all
Also.
talked to the Northwest Council of Governments? They're through their care program, technically a family house is like multifamily buildings are able to apply for weatherization programming. It might be worthwhile maybe
Okay.
reaching out to them.
Okay,
I can reach out to my contact there and put them in touch with you.
I think, but do they work in Lake County?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I work with them pretty actively.
okay.
Brenda.
But that might be an easier path for funding.
Yeah.
The professional especially spend it, it's really hard to get, and you get the award.
Right.
But good luck getting paid.
Yeah.
Well, and Brittany last night also said that she doesn't know if the community project projects are even gonna have any funding to be awarded. In, thinking that might be on the chopping.
Good.
If she didn't say that, right?
Does C4 have money for that?
That would be where the money is through.
But like not through,
And one thing, I did talk to Dana, about it as well, is two-way funds possibly could be helped to supplement some of that budget, possibly depending on what's in there,
Mhm.
because it is affordable housing. So she just wanted me to bring it up to this group
Yeah.
also, that we're working on that project and pulling together how we can pull that funding together. Because that project doesn't really have it in their coffers, if you will. So she
and I-
wanted me to mention that also, that I had talked to her.
I
about
think
that.
at one point, sorry, Tracy. Sarah had mentioned some of the quotes and I was like, well, I could do it for 2% less than that. For the money, I'm like, I'll do it on evenings and weekends, so I don't know if I know of anybody that does that, or if Matt knows of anybody. Are you looking for bids as well? Window manufacturers, installation? I mean, is that also a help?
Yeah, I think our board meeting is in 2 weeks, so we'll kind of have a better vibe on it, but right now we're looking at funding options and opportunities.
When was that built?
Sorry,
When was that building? What vintage is that?
1980s.
Okay, so you're past
It's-
lead this, paint
it's
and
got
asbestos
old-
probably.
It's, yeah,
Okay.
it's got old windows and a lot of them. But we obviously want to maintain that affordable housing option for the folks that are in there and don't want any sanctions coming down from HUD, and our funders and, that help support that, because they are low income seniors and adults with disabilities, so we want to make sure that we're protecting that affordable housing asset also.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what building is it?
Mount Massive Manor over
Oh.
across from the elementary school. And there's about 30 units in there roughly. And so it's,
125 seems low for all those commercial
well,
windows.
we've gotten bids from 125 to 130. We recently got one from somebody who's done some projects similar
Yeah,
for 125.
Sarah
But, yeah.
mentioned something crazy like 300 and it's like,
Yeah.
golly.
So, but again, Dana wanted me to mention to this board, that her and I talked about the 2A funding, if there were possibilities for it, that, as it is affordable housing. But also just want to mention that we were putting in for sky in the pie funding with that congressional, I don't know. And I've started talking to private, foundations and things that support adults with disabilities, low-income seniors housing, so. But again, just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention, that in that affordable housing realm, that project needs some love.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks for letting us know about that. Any other updates? Okay, we're a little early. But if we have gone through the agenda, and if we have no other updates, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Art moves to adjourn.
I'll second, Bullock seconds.
It's 6:55 and this Regional Housing Authority meeting is adjourned.
And great work.
Beautiful job.
Yes, great work.
You're proud of yourself.
An hour and a half early,
Mhm.
or half an hour early on your last meeting, going out and style.
Well, you know,
I'm pretty.
stylish.
Brenda.
Oh, yeah.
And then as soon as you end it out, as soon as I get the.